How are you doing, mate? You alright?
Alright, Stevie.
I'm down here, mate. We got here okay.
Everything alright?
All good, mate. She makes a good sandwich and a good cup of coffee, so all good. And she's got
A nice one.
and she's all sorted, so...
Fantastic.
Well, Linda wanted to, an old school friend of mine, she phoned up and she wanted to go and see this group that she really loved that was playing at the Ball in Great Sutton. But I didn't really follow them, but she had nowhere else to go. You know, had no one to go with her. So I said, okay, I'll come with you.
I was in the local boozer, the Bull's Head, and I was with my best pal at the time, and he's still my best pal now, all them years later. Johnny Briscoe. Top geezer. We done detention centre together. We was like twins. Done everything together. I fucking love him. Still love him there. And these two girls walked in. And they were both crackers. Absolute stunners.
I thought, oh, I really, really like him. He had this lovely, like beigey suit and tie shirt, dead smart, and he had jet black hair, big brown eyes that were like slanted but dead big ones, and like little sideboards here and a Mexican moustache. He was really, really handsome. I was saying, Linda, look, that bloke's just coming. Look at these two blokes. I like those. Yeah. Anyway, they walked to the bar and then they turned around, started staring at us. And I thought, I'll have to turn sideways because I look nice at the sideways. So even though Linda was sitting there and I was talking to her like that, I was going, yes, Linda, yeah. Just so that I could see. I knew Mick was looking, so he'd seen me sideways.
Long black hair, beautiful olive skin. Her eyes were sparkling. Believe me, we never got birds like this in our fucking boozer. She was absolute stunning. I got chatting to her. Johnny chatted to Linda. And I've never chatted to anyone so beautiful in my life.
Anyway, he came and sat down then. They both came and sat down and said, would you like a drink? He was always dead polite, very, very, very good manners. Never swore in front of me. And if anybody did ever swear, he'd say, excuse me, can you just watch your language, please? Whatever, that sort of thing.
What are you drinking, love? And I can remember what she said and all. She said, I'll have a cherry bean cider, please. And I got her a cherry bean cider. We sat down, had a chat. And it was lovely. It was wonderful. I just couldn't take my eyes off her. She was stunning. Absolutely. She looked like a Hollywood actress.
And then we listened to the music and we had a dance, we were all dancing. It was just fun. And then at the end of the night, Mick took us home. He was driving that day. He opened the car doors for me and Linda, took us straight home, opened the doors again, let us out. We had a little bit of a kiss then on that. So that was really nice. And then we did like a double date again in a few days' time.
We had a little club down the town called the Waverley. I'm sure I took her in there.
Now, I'd never been to the Waverley. I never used to go to Ellesmere Port. But Mick loved it. And I remember it was just enormous, this great big club. Anyway, Mick, when this music came on, Mick just got up. He stood in the middle of the dance floor, got down on his behind, and he was doing all these jumps and waves and jumping around and doing everything. You wouldn't believe it. He was amazing. Everybody just stopped in the end, and they all came, made a great big circle. Mick was just in the middle, and they all stood around going, "Whoa," you know. And I think that was breakdancing.
And then I took her to a Chinese restaurant, got her a nice meal.
It was by the dock, so it was a bit rough. But it had a lovely Chinese restaurant. I can just remember sitting at the table in front of the window. It was fabulous, the food. But if you walked sort of through the pub, it sort of went further along right in the back, and there was like another couple of rooms, and it was like open till sort of, say, all nights. Because in those days the pubs had to shut at a set time, but it wasn't, that was way open. I think sailors and everybody used to get in there. So I always used to order king prawn fried rice. I can't remember what Mick used to order, but he always used to say to me, "Now, do you want a starter?" And I'll go, "No, I'll just have me king prawn fried rice." So you can guarantee before I'd even finished my king prawn fried rice, somebody had come over to Mick and whispered in his ear. The next thing Mick would say, "Irene, sorry, Irene, you just have to go home now. So-and-so will book a taxi for you because there's a fight going to kick off." So I never got a chance to finish my whole meal. So I would never have a starter. So as soon as I get in there, I go, "No, I don't want a starter, I just want my food, I just want my food." And lots of people still say to me now, "God, you eat so quickly." You know, and I do, I'm like that. I've got to eat it as soon as I've got it. And I always remember when I used to get in the taxi, I used to always look around, I used to sit in the back and I always look around like that. And I'd see the bit of Mick underneath, about 10 bloody men outside the restaurant. They're all going like that. Yeah, I'll never forget that. That happened quite often. But one day, the toilet was also, you had to go through this pub where because it by the deck, it must have been lots of sailors off the ships. So that's why it all used to happen. And then you had to go up these really dark stairs. It was a bit, not very nice really to go to the loo. And I remember going to the loo, but Mick always used to stand at the bottom of the stairs anyway, just in case anybody from the other rooms would follow me or something. And on that day, I'll never forget, I couldn't open the door, but I was pushing it instead of pulling it. But it's something I still do today. I don't know why, but I still do. So I shouted, "Mick!" And he thought probably a sailor or somebody would come up here. So he came rushing up the stairs. Next thing, booted the door open. Never forget that. But he was always very chivalrous. It was like my hero. He'd always look after you. He'd never let you, and he never used to. I used to see them fights, but he used to try and get me home before.
I said to her straight away, I said, "I'm going to marry you, And I was only young, I was only 18 and a half. In fact, I want to tell you something now, she won't like me telling you this. She's older than me. She tells everyone I'm older than her, but believe me, she's older than me. I was her toy boy, believe me.
Let's talk about your parents first.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about your parents. What did they feel about Mick when you first took him home?
They weren't very pleased. I don't think they weren't very happy. You see, I had two sisters and an older brother, and we lived in quite a big house. And everybody in Neston used to think the Kelseys, they're loaded. And my dad had two boats as well in the big driveway. So you saw the great big house. And everyone said, "God, the black film stars." They still talk about it today. They see me. They say, "All the Kelseys, all the daughters were dead pretty and lived in a great big house and whatever," that sort of thing.
Brought up well, beautiful mum and dad. She had two sisters, one brother.
But my dad was just an ordinary electrician. He wasn't loaded, but he was an electrician. He built that house. I remember he bought a plot of land, about 100 quid. It was. I remember when we first went, it was about 10, and it's just fields. And he built this house. You know, there's a lovely big house, but he used to say he went to the University of Life, but it was fabulous, a really lovely big house. And then his friends, you know, they all, because he was an electrician, they were all in the trade. Friends that would do this, friends that could do this, or Bricky could do that, so they used to do it. And it was lovely. And he had a great big back garden and a great big front garden. But Dad always used to like to wear his overalls. He would never get dressed up. He hated it. If he had to get dressed up, it was hell. He was in such a bad mood. He just liked to wear these brown overalls. And I've got 2 older sisters. And Pauline, she was very snotty. She used to date all these dead rich blokes. And when they used to bring the car down the driveway, if Dad was in the garden, Pauline would say, oh, that's just the gardener. You know, because Janice and Pauline went out with really, really rich blokes, they're so much older than me. You see, I was a bit younger. Pauline used to say, they used to try and get me to go out with like the boyfriends of the men that they were meeting because we're loaded. I mean, there's one in Burton. His mum and dad had a great big house. They had a great big pond in the garden where they used to go skating. And Pauline used to say, oh, come and meet so-and-so. It's so-and-so's brother, you know, and you go skating. I just wasn't interested. And they used to go to be members of the tennis club in Pargate as well, where you'd meet nice people. And Dad used to say, oh, Irene, he said, I'm going to you know, get the membership, pay for you to go to the tennis club. You meet somebody really nice. I was going, no, I don't know. I'm not going to go that. I don't want to. I love tennis, but there's no way was I going to do that sort of thing. But because I was a baby, my dad used to still call me the babby, even when I was in my 40s. Is a babby coming today? Whatever, that sort of thing. But Paul, you know, I come from quite a good, well, I'm not used to being with anybody that goes in prison, or I've never been brought up to do any, you know, nothing like that.
What was your mum like? What did your mum do?
Oh, she was lovely. She really didn't do anything. There's I've got a lovely picture of me mum. Whoever must have put in the other room. She was just a normal mum. You know, cooked dinner and everything. And I was spoilt because Dad did both boats. One was called Irene 1, Irene 2 was the second one out of them all. They just, because I was a baby, they really spoiled me. But Dad was so strict, really, really strict. And my dad had a brother that the Hill family owned a farm during the war. There's about 5 brothers, but during the war, most of them went away to war. And the oldest brother, Uncle Charlie, he stayed and kept the farm going and that sort of thing. It's still going now, but they're not around. And Uncle Ernie, he was a bit of a character. I think the Kelseys are a bit of weirdos, you know, they all seem to be a bit funny. Anyway, Uncle Ernie moved out of the farmhouse and he went to live in the shed, great big shed on the farm. And it was just full of guns, nothing in there, just guns. But he used to supply guns to all these toffs, you know, that used to go, you know, all that sort of thing. He's met Sean Connery, he's dead now, Uncle Ernie, but he used to supply all the guns for all the toffs to do all this sort of thing. And in the end, he started to live in there. He moved out of the farm and just lived, made a bed on the floor, you know, to do that. And he used to get a pension. He never once cashed his pension. When he died, his pension book was full. He'd never, because he was just a bit of an eccentric. But I think we all are, really, because everybody says I'm very strange, but in a nice way. But anyway, so that was really good.
What were you like at school? Were you a scholar?
Oh no, I was just average. But at school we had to. I used to go to Thornton Hough Primary School, which was where Dad used to go because he was from Raby and Thornton Hough. And I wasn't a scholar, but I always remember we had to do these. We had to learn to knit red mittens. Red mittens. The wool was horrible. Red mittens on 4 needles. I just couldn't get the hang of it. I just couldn't get the hang of it at all. So instead of doing that, I used to get my friends say, oh, can you just do a few lines of this and that? And I could see, I had good eyesight then. So in the sewing, I used to thread all their needles for them in exchange for them to do some more knitting. But they never got finished. Never. But I did get into trouble because I hadn't done them. And I kept saying, oh, to the teacher, I've forgotten to bring them in. I forgot to bring them in. But they never got finished. And I always remember, because I hadn't done, because they were homework, I had to stand outside the headmaster's door. And that was terrible for me, because I was very, no, I'm not naughty or nothing like that. But then I was there till I was about 10. We used to have to get the bus. There's quite a few of us that lived in Neston, but it's far too far to walk. It'd take about an hour to walk from Thornton Hough. But we used to save our bus fares, and we'd go and buy sweets in the little shop in Thornton Hough, and then we'd walk all the way home. A big gang of us. That was fun. And whenever I got a report, I used to sit on the bus and just get a pen and just alter all the marks, into like A's or B's. Because I was just average, I wasn't thick or nothing like that. Because I never used to get A's or nothing like that. And my mum used to say to me, oh, she said, it's very bad, this A you've got, isn't it? It's quite hard to see the things. And I said, oh yeah, the teacher says to apologise, because she had a wonky pen. But Mum never, she just left it. But Mum and Dad were very strict. I mean, I failed when I took the 11 plus, but the other two sisters passed, but I didn't. And then Dad said, oh, you'll pass next time. So Dad wanted me to take it for the second time, which I did do when I was about a year after, I think it was, and I still failed again. But I mean, I sort of B-ish, but I'm very, very good at English. That was my really, really good subject. And maths, when I went to the secondary school in Neston, I'm terrible at maths, really bad. Well, I was then, and I just couldn't do it. And we had a teacher, Mr. Alderman, he was, and I think he was Scottish or something, but he was old, and it was a horrible classroom because he used to sit right in front of us. We'd all be sitting here, and we'd have a big window here where you could look out on the playgrounds. And then you had to sit one at a time, and he used to call you Kelsey, even the girls, I should be terrified. And I used to always be looking out of the window, because I just didn't know. I was too scared to ask him what to do, because it was really, really scary. So I used to just look out of the window watching other people on the playground and that, and he'd shout, Kelsey, Kelsey, and I'd jump out of my skin. He'd say, do your work. So I'd do it. But another reason was because, I know this is quite a silly thing to say really, but it is actually quite true. He had this red and purple nose that was bulbous. It was all like that. It was disgusting. And all the boys used to say, oh, don't do your work, because you know what he does? When he got the class and he's all doing maths, he sits in front of you all, and if anyone's got the head down doing the sums, he'll pick his nose and flick it at them. So that's another reason why I wasn't very good at maths. I was too scared to be going like that. I mean, I didn't want bogeymen flying at me. Do you know what I mean? But whether that was true or not, I don't know. But I never forgot that. Never forgot that. And then we had a music teacher as well, and her name was Kelsey, the same as my surname. She must have been a distant cousin of my dad's, but I've never met her before. And I'm terrible at music. I mean, I should really enter the X Factor with my friend Irene. We keep saying, because we've got fabulous voices, but we haven't really, but I'm terrible. And because she used to ask questions, and she always used to say, Irene, can you come out the front and point this out, or can you come and do that, or can you do that, or do this? And I used to be so annoyed because I couldn't do it. But because she knew my name was Kelsey, she used to sort of ask me all these questions. But English, I was really, really good. I loved English.
What did the young Irene want to become then? What did you want to do?
Me? Well, at school I started to, I stayed on for a fifth year, which you do anyway nowadays, but you didn't in those days. And I did a commercial course. I mean, I was offered to do shorthand, but I just couldn't get the hang of shorthand. I mean, my writing now looks like shorthand because it's disgusting. It's like about 10 different people writing it, somebody once said to me. But I just couldn't get the hang of shorthand, so I just stuck to the typing. So I used to just be typing away and like that. I mean, to learn typing, you had to have like this cotton thing, weird, that you put over the keyboard and it tied round. So you had to put your hands underneath and go like that. So when I got a job, when I did leave school, I applied for Littlewoods Pools in Birkenhead, Canning Street, but it's well gone now. And Mum came with me for the interview because that's what I was so innocent, you know, sort of thing. And we were sitting in this waiting room before I went for my interview, and they were playing music. And Mum said, "Oh, this is a nice flipping place to work, isn't it? Playing music when you're supposed to be at work." But I realised then it was short time, it was the summertime when there's no football. So all the pools girls have to fill all the coupons, you see. So they used to play music for them. But I went as an audio typist. Anyway, I got the job and everything. And there's about six women called chorus and chorus departments. Because we used to have all the letters, and especially at Christmas, like somebody would say, "Oh, I think I've won so much money," or "I've done this," or "I've done that," you know, in the pools. And they hadn't, so we had to type a letter to every single person. Even if we got the coupon late when it was December on the post, we had to type a letter to them.
I remember saying to her, "And then I way of swindling me, so I can win £1 million." She said, "Oh, I can't do that." I said, "Of course you fucking can. There must be a way." But she was just too pure, like the white-driven snow. She'd never get involved in anything criminality, you know.
And then when people did win, we had to sort all the money out and take it to be checked, you know, get the thingy to sign it, the bosses and that to sign it and do it. But we were really always busy, but I loved it. Now at the time, he was an industrial painter who used to climb up these great big tanks, petrol tanks you see in factories and, you know, oil refineries and that. And you have to go right at the top. He used to have to paint them. He used to climb up like a monkey. He used to paint those. And that's why he's so good at climbing, because he's done a lot of rooftop protests, hasn't he? So, you know, you've got to be a good climber, and that's where he probably got it all from. But he used to climb up these great big high things, absolutely enormous they were.
Was it a well-paid job?
Well, I think he used to get like cash in hand. Is it cash in hand or sort of thing? I mean, it was like if he did a job, he wasn't the boss, but I mean, the boss used to pick him up every morning and take him straight to work and then drop him off at home again. But I mean, if they got a job done quickly or something, they got more money. Do you know what I mean? So it was like you never knew when he was going to come home or whatever.
And at that time, Steve, you might not believe this, but I was a bloody hard worker, mate. I was an industrial painter, working for myself. I was painting electric pilings, gasometers, big petrol tanks, railway bridges, shot blasting them, red leading them. Yeah, I was on good money, but I was still a villain, mate.
When was the first time you got an impression that you know, he was also making other money on the side, but not from legal?
Well, I moved into a flat with Linda. Linda was already living in this big house, so I went in and shared her room with her. Well, actually, what happened was, to make me do that was Mum and Dad had gone away to Anglesey, to this cottage. They used to do it now and again. And I was just sort of going out with Mick at this point, just, you know, nothing dead serious, but just going out with him. And my older brother came round with his mates, who was married, and he had a big party, had all his friends round, loads and loads of friends round. And Mum and Dad had a big essay in the kitchen, and they were getting food. Some of them would cook the food, or wrapped all that and everything. And I'd invited Mick to it. So Mick was good, and I said to Mick, I said, "Take me out of here." I said, "There's too many people here. It's all, you know, it was all going on, sort of thing." Everybody was in bed with someone else, and in Mum and Dad's bed and all the bedrooms. Honestly. And I was in charge of the house then, because it was Rodney got all his mates, and my older brother got them all round. So Mick said, "Oh, I'll take you out then to get away from it, you know, until they've all gone." So, which he did do. But then he came back and he stayed with me for a couple of days. And then when Mum and Dad came back, obviously the house was a tip. There was food all over the great big essay. there was cupboard door hanging off. But I never did it. You know, I wasn't there half the time when it was all going on. So I did everything. So anyway, when Mum and Dad came back, they went mad. So Dad said, man was absolutely, he's got a very, very bad temper, Dad. Really, really crazy. So I thought, I'll have to go and live with Linda for a bit. So I packed all my stuff, said, right, I'm going, gonna leave. And took all my stuff and went to stay with Linda in this place. So I stayed there quite a lot then. I think it was till after I got married. So when I was living in that place, Mick used to come quite often. And then eventually he came to stay. You know, so it's more off there than not. And he'd get him and John would go out all times of the night and day and come back. Sometimes he'd have few bruises on his face or something. And I'd always say, where have you been? Where have you been?
I was out robbing, got myself a shotgun, and that was the way I wanted it, you know. But I loved her, mate. I did love her, sincerely.
He used to go missing for like weeks at an end. He'd go out, say with his mates, just for a few pints, he'd say. And then I wouldn't see him for like a couple of weeks at a time. And I think, where the hell is he? But in them days, you see, no mobile phones. The house didn't have a phone. If you wanted to ring anyone up, you had to go to a public phone box. But then the public phone box is not really good because you got to know who. So I used to just go out looking around for him, see if I could find him anywhere. And then when he eventually did come back after about 2 weeks, I'd say to him, where have you been, Mick? Where the hell have you been? And he'd say, oh, well, do you know what, Irene? He said, I had a really, really bad hangover, really, really bad. And I've just had to stay at my friend's for a few weeks to get myself better again before I come back. And I believed him. So did he have a hangover for 2 weeks or what? I don't know. But he never used to tell me where he went.
He disappeared one time though for 8 weeks, didn't he? And he came back and told you where he'd been.
Yeah, it was in Risley. Yeah, well, actually, yeah, a friend of his told, I was waiting for Mick to come, and this is before we were actually married, a friend of his came over to me, and I don't think it was a good friend, but it was a friend anyway. Mick knew him, and he said, Mick's been in Risley for so many weeks. He said, you want to, he's not a very good character, you want to ditch him sort of thing, you're too good for him sort of thing. Never told Mick that at the time, mind you, but that was Risley. Yeah.
Can you remember what that was for?
No, I can't remember what that one was for. Didn't know anything about that. But when we were together after that, you had to go to court quite a few different times.
Did you ever go to court with him?
No, I just couldn't bring myself to go to court. I just couldn't. I remember the morning he used to go and he used to get dressed, to go. And I just remember cleaning my teeth. Why? I just remember cleaning my teeth thinking, oh, Mick's got to go to court today. Oh, Mick's going to go to court today. Because I had so many times over the years then when I've had to ring up the court to find out what's been going on, what's happened to him. It was horrendous. It's not nice at all, believe me. It's horrible. I've got a fear of courts, I have. Really, if anybody says, come to the court or something to do this or whatever, I can't even go and watch anybody else. I just can't. I'm just terrified of courts.
Was he ever nervous? Was he always like happy-go-lucky before he went?
No, he was never nervous. He would never say, oh, but he did used to say to me, it all depends on the judge. If the judge is in a bad mood or he's had a lot of cases, he'll give you a bad sentence. But if he's in a good mood, he won't. And that's perfectly true. That is so true. I just thought he was just making that up, but it's so true. I know it's not right, but that is what does go on. And Mick said, oh, I wonder what the magistrate's going like. But I just felt sick, and I started getting, doing more of me stuff like this. I used to go like this. I used to get up and touch everything like that. Got to touch that. Got to do it in an order, constantly doing that.
Like a compulsive disorder?
Yeah. I used to do that before, go around touching everything before he'd go. And I think, oh, is he going to come back? Is he going to come back? And then to wait a few hours while I go to court. And I used to just think, oh God, I just feel, it was horrible, horrible. Is he going to come back? And his mum was going to cook him this special tea, steak and kidney pie, I think it was, that is his favourite. He was going to come back. Anyway, he did come back, thank God for that. But it's just, you know.
What was his attitude like, you know, when he came back, or if he served a short sentence and he was away and he came back? Was he remorseful? Was he promising you that he was going to change?
Yes,
Because I can imagine you
yeah.
were with you getting that kind of compulsive disorder and feeling nervous about it and hating courts. I can imagine you were wanting him to change, but
Yeah.
Was
Yeah. Oh, he always said he's not going to do it again. He wouldn't do it again. You know, he never said to me, it's not my fault, I didn't do it. Or he never denied it. He just said, I'm sorry, Irene. You know, I won't do it again. You know, I won't do it. And when we did get together, Mick's mum and dad were so pleased because they thought he'll change his ways. You see, but he didn't, did he?
You know, tell us a little bit about you meeting his mum and dad. What were they like?
Yeah. Oh, they were lovely. Yeah, they were really. His dad was a painter. He was a painter and decorator. He was really nice, and his mum Ira was lovely. She's absolutely gorgeous looking. She's still that. She's 90 something now, and she's still very, very attractive. They were lovely. They were lovely. They spoke Cockney as well. You know, they made me very, very welcome. And quite often I used to go round them. I used to look after Mark, his younger son, his older son, Mick's older brother. God, what's his name now? I'm getting a bit flustered. John. He was in the Royal Navy. He was amazing. You know, he was lovely. And Mark was the younger brother. So I used to babysit, you know, for him. And I used to love drawing. So I was always filling in and drawing. Sometimes I used to make lunch for him when he came home from school. And I always made him tomato soup. Every single time he came home from school, I used to heat up tomato soup. And I don't even know if he liked tomato soup, but that's what he got every day. He never complained. So poor Mark, but he was lovely. He followed in his brother's footsteps and went in the Navy as well. So don't know why Mick ended up like he did, because he came from a really good family. You know, it's.
Let's touch upon it. Did your mum like Mick?
No, they didn't come to the wedding when we got married. No.
Okay, well let's go into that a little bit. Then why didn't they like him? Did they know that he was somebody who was involved in crime, or was there because he was a very polite guy? You said.
Yeah. I think they might have known, or I'm not sure if something did happen when I was with him. And he went away, and Mum and Dad found out. But he wasn't. They didn't really take to him at all. Not at all.
Her mum was absolutely lovely. I loved the mum, but unfortunately, I never got on with her father. He wouldn't even come to the wedding, you know.
I didn't want me to get married, but then I was pregnant, you see, so I was getting quite big. And Mum thought I was just eating too much. She said to one of my sisters, all right, he's eating so much, she's getting really big. But whether she'd have known the truth at the time, you know, I don't know.
So were you pregnant?
When I married Mick,
when
yeah.
you married Mick, yeah.
Yeah. It was in January, the wedding. I think it was beginning of January. It was the 7th, something like that. It was snowing. And I wore this lovely white satin mini dress with long fashion, which is the fashion again now, with a big hood with all white fur around, and these lovely white leather platform, dead tight boots with it. And Mick bought me a white Bible. And he wore, I think he wore a brown suit with a tie. You know, he always wears suits anyway, so he looked really, really smart. And Janet and Pauline, my sisters, took me there. And then, you know, we were in front of the registrar, and I just looked at Mick, and he just looked at me. We just couldn't stop laughing. We just laughed and laughed. Whether it was nervous, laughter, or what, we just couldn't stop laughing. We were laughing for ages, and the registrar was just standing peacefully, you know, so flippant. We should hurry up. We were just laughing and laughing and laughing. We just couldn't stop. Never forget that.
Yeah, it was a nice wedding. But like I say, her old man wouldn't come, mate. He didn't like me. And I don't blame him. I don't fucking blame him. I was a villain, mate, and he probably could see it in my eyes, you know. I just loved a bit of villainy, Steve. You know, and I should have grown up and matured, but I never, mate.
Anyway, we've managed to get our vows out and done. And then we went back to Mick's house, Mick's mum and dad's house, for some food and everything. And then my sisters left, and me and Mick went to the pub that we met in the Bull. We had a few drinks there. Then I can't remember any more of that night. But it must have been all right because we went home.
Did you cut the cake and do all of
No, we
that?
didn't have a wedding cake. No.
Did you have a honeymoon?
No. It wasn't like nowadays they have all this wedding, honeymoon, and big reception. The reception was lovely, nice food, but we didn't have many people there. Just my two sisters, and I think his cousin Irene came, and it wasn't a great big do.
Few friends. It was nice. It was nice for the time, We're going back here to 1971,
Was there a wedding ring?
Oh yeah, lovely one. Big, dead wide, white gold, all engraved. It was beautiful, it was. It's fabulous. Dead wide one. It's gorgeous. But I'm afraid to say I pawned that for £3. Years afterwards when I wanted to get married to somebody else, because I seen this handbag and was desperate to buy it and didn't have enough money in the market. So I took the ring and got £3 for it. Those days it's a lot of money. But I never went back for it, which is stupid. How silly was I? It was gorgeous, big, wide, all patterned. It was beautiful.
What was the first weeks of married life like to Mick Peterson?
Oh, it was fabulous. We actually we moved in with his mum and dad. Mick decorated a spare room in their house. And they got a crib ready for us. It had all blue broad anglaise lace. It's beautiful for Mike because I was pregnant, then. It was great. And one day he came back with a little boxer dog, a little puppy. I said, because where did you get that dog from? But anyway, I don't know where he got it from. Still don't know where he got it from now. But anyway, we lived with it and everything. And it was lovely, and it started to grow up, and whatever. And then when I was pregnant, the dog started to, I can't remember what we called it. Anyway, he started being ill, this dog. And we got the vet out, and the vet came to the house, and the vet said, "Do you know what's wrong with him?" We said, "What?" He said, "He thinks he's pregnant." Because I was pregnant, the dog was taking on all my, which is weird, isn't it? Taking on, like, the dog thought he was pregnant as well. Oh, it was strange. But I don't know what happened to it after that.
Where were you living?
We were living with his mum and dad in Great Sutton. In their house, yeah.
And was Mick still working as an industrial painter?
Oh, yeah. While we were living there, I got when I went to see mum and dad, an invitation had come for me to a party. And it was just after I'd had Mike, so I thought, oh, great. And it was in this place, I can't remember where the place was now, but it was like an old friend, quite a few posh friends they were. So I said to Mick, let's go to this party, we've been invited. He said, oh yeah, okay, because first time I'd been out since I'd had Mike, so I could have a nice drink. And Mick said, oh yeah, I look forward to going to that party. So we got dressed up and that, and we went to the party. And then after a couple of hours, Mick disappeared. Where? God knows where he went. He was upstairs somewhere. Anyway, after a couple of hours, I never even went to looking for him. I never thought. And I was just having, and talking to other people. And then Mick came down. He's only been there a good hour or maybe 2 hours. He came downstairs and stood in front of me, and he collapsed on the floor, just flat out. Just went down the floor, flat out. He wouldn't wake up. I was trying to get him to wake up. And the other blokes were trying to get him to wake up. He wouldn't wake up. I was blooming furious. So some of the blokes said, oh, we'll have to take him home. So they both had to carry him. Some had to carry him one end, some had to carry the other end. And they took him home in this white van one of them had. And I had to go home as well. And I was blooming annoyed about it because the first time out, I did not want to go home, wanted to stay and have a few drinks. And I felt a bit mean, really, because I was, Mick was using my feet. Mick, wake up, wake up, wake up. He doesn't know about that. He's often spoken about that part in his books, but he doesn't know about that bit, so it's best to keep that quiet. But anyway, so we had to go home. And I remember his mum and dad were mad because I thought he was dead drunk or something. Something had happened because he just conked out. But I'll never forget that, and I never forgive him for that, spoiling my night.
Yeah, we had a son, Michael. He's still alive and well, but he's got his issues and problems. We both love him to bits.
it's about Saturday night I started getting all these contractions and stuff like that, and telling his mum and dad and Mick, and his mum said, oh, you know, Mick, well, she never called him Mick, she called him Michael, like, you know. She said, Michael, she said, I think you're going to have to take Irene to the hospital. So we got a taxi. No, we phoned, I think Mick phoned the ambulance up to come. And he came with me, had no shoes on, because he was in such a rush and a panic and everything. He didn't know. And we got to the hospital, had to go to Clatterbridge Hospital, which is closed down now. It's like a little red building, but it's all gone now, dead old-fashioned. And then I had to get admitted, sort of thing, and Mick stood outside. And then they took me further on to have labour, but he wasn't allowed in the room because they couldn't do that in those days. Nowadays, people can go in, but you can't do that. And he was waiting, he was pacing anxiously up and down, apparently, the nurses said, and they kept asking, where is she? Is she all right? Is she all right? Is she all right? But it went on for about 24 hours and sort of about 7 o'clock at night. And then eventually I had Mike anyway, and he was 7 pounds and 8 ounces. And Mick came and saw him and everything, you know, and it was really nice. He was dead proud and was holding him and whatever. And then he went home when he knew I was okay. And he had to walk all the way home because in his panic, he had no shoes on. He had no money in his pocket, nothing at all like that. So he had to walk all the way from Clatterbridge to Ellesmere Port. And that is a hell of a long way. But that's what he had to do. And then the following day he came to see me again. And Mum and Dad, well, Dad didn't come, but Mum was there. And Mick said, oh, you know, isn't he gorgeous and all things like that, you know. And Mum was saying, oh, yes. And Mick made a joke. I can't remember what his joke was about. But it was just, you know, a silly joke. But Mum sort of really, she doesn't sort of get things like that. And she was a little bit, oh, I don't like you saying that, Mick. But it was a joke. You know, I mean, anyway, she went and whatever. She went back home. But Mick was so proud. He used to hold Mick, you know, and do it. So, I mean, when we did go back to his house after that, he'd decorated it all, put the crib up for us and everything. It was dead nice. It was really nice. And he was a good dad. He used to take him out all the time for a walk in the pram. We had one of these great big silver cross prams, you know, like the old-fashioned ones. And he always had to push it. Wherever we went, he always had to push the pram. It was lovely. And sometimes we used to walk all the way to Little Nesson to Mum and Dad's house, and we'd go through a place just out of Great Sutton that it's got great big, it's in the country, but it's got great big mansions with great big high walls and everything. And as we used to go past, Mick used to give the pram to me, and he'd start climbing up the walls and looking over the walls. And I always, dead big high brick walls they were, and I'd say to him, what are you doing, Mick? He said, I'm looking at the gardens, it's a beautiful garden. And I used to think that's what he was doing, just looking at all the gardens, because he, you know, he was really into gardening sort of thing. But now I know he's probably looking to try and do something, you know. What was he thinking of doing? Why was he looking over the walls? But as I say, he kept everything like that away from me. He wouldn't let me see, you know, he never told me, or I never saw anything at all, that sort of part of him. But I know now, yeah, that's why I used to climb right up the great big high walls as well. And he'd be peeking over and he'd say to me, oh, it's a really lovely garden, lovely bushes over there. And I used to believe him, you know. But he must have been thinking of robbing them or something, mustn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know, something. But I never knew, don't know what really went on. But he was, you know, really possessive. And if he took me out as well, sometimes if I was all dressed up and everything, he was always smoking then. He'd go into little newsagents and get some fags, and I'd stay outside the shop. And if a car went past with blokes in, they bibbed me, he'd come running out of the shop. Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Why have they bibbed you? Why have they bibbed you? You know, and then he'd take me home and he said, I'm not taking you out now, all there's men after you and things like that. He was really possessive as well as being, you know, mannerly. It's a bit too sort of
protective.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
How did things change then? I mean, you know, crime was obviously becoming a bigger part of his life than his ordinary job, and you know, he wasn't a major criminal, but he was getting involved in
petty. Yeah, well, with with his job, when they used to finish, if they finished the job, say they finished the job at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he wouldn't have to stay till 5. They'd finish. So then they go to this working men's club somewhere in Little Sutton, which was open for drinking, and they go there drinking, and then from there he'd go to the pub in the evening. Sometimes he never used to come back till all hours. You know, he'd come home in the following morning, all the milk bottles be smashed on the floor, be standing on the door like that. Never forget that sort of thing. So that's when he must have been planning all this sort of thing. And another time when Mike was a baby, he took us to his mum and dad's house. You know, we were only going to go for a couple of hours. And Nick said, oh, I need to go out. I need to pop out for a minute. Sorry, excuse me. So he popped out. He never came back. And I was waiting for him to come and pick me back and take Mike back because Mike needed a bottle and everything. And we phoned all the pubs up. His dad phoned all the pubs up to try and get him because I didn't have a key. Couldn't get hold of him anyway. Don't know where he was. So in the end, his dad said, he said, have to take you home, Irene. So he took me home and he had to break a window, the kitchen window, to get in. So, you know, so he could open the door because we couldn't get hold of Mick anywhere. Still don't know where he went that night, but anyway, couldn't get hold of him. And that sort of thing started happening a bit more often. Like on a Friday, he used to get paid, and he always used to say, oh, I'll go straight to the chippy after work, and you know, what do you want? And get a nice Chinese or something. But by the time that time would come and he wouldn't be home, and I think, where is he? He's supposed to be bringing the, you know, Chinese and whatever. And he'd disappear again for hours, sort of thing. What he was doing, I don't know. Then he'd come back again and wouldn't know where he was. But then when he used to disappear for weeks at a time, sometimes fortnights, you know, for a fortnight. I'd say, where have you been? Where have you been? Because there's no way to trace him. You couldn't, no mobile phones, you just couldn't. I used to just push a pram. Wonder where he is. We'll find him anywhere, go to his cousins and whatever. And he'd just come back and say, oh, I'm so sorry, Irene, but I've just had a really, really bad hangover. He said, I just had to stay at my friend's house, and I just believed it. But, you know, so I was very, very naive. I was also dead naive when we got our house, when Mike was a baby, because there was somebody Mick had just come home from work, and as soon as he came home from work, he liked to get in the bath. So he was just got in the bath. Excuse me. And there was a knock on the door. Mike was only like about 6-7 months old, and I was in the kitchen. So I came in, opened the door, and there was there's two women really rough. One looked like the mother, and one looked like the daughter, but they're dead rough. And they said, "Is Mickey in? Is Mickey in, please? Can we speak to Mickey, please?" So I never thought anything of it. So I just shouted up the stairs, "Mick, there's two women here to come to see you." So he came straight downstairs. But before he came downstairs, I said to them, oh, I'll just go and make you a cup of coffee if you want. So in the meantime, Mick had come downstairs. I'd made the coffee for these two women. When after I finished coughing, I walked into the room and they'd gone. And I said to Mick, where's them women gone? Where's those two women gone? I've just made them coffee. And he said, don't ever invite slags like that into my house again. And I thought, what? Another time Mick had gone missing again, but he did it so often I didn't really think that much of it. But one night, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, Mike was asleep, Mike was asleep in bed, and I was asleep in bed, and the front door went. So, and I was annoyed because it'd been Christmas just before that, and Mick had bought me a stocking, because Mum always used to give me a stocking when there's little nuts and stuff in. But he did it this year, but he got me lovely nighties, remember it, purple nightie, it was gorgeous, and a dressing gown, it was really nice and all that. So I had that on, and the door went at the front door, and Mick hadn't seen Mick for a couple of weeks, so I thought, who the hell is this? So I walked down the stairs, and I'm sure I heard someone saying, I was going, who is it? Who is it? And they were going, Mick, Mick. So I opened the door, and there's about 4 policemen standing on the doorstep. And they just came in, and they said, we've got a search warrant here, something, whatever. And they just went over the whole house, their whole house went everywhere. They pulled everything out here, that looking for Mick. Don't know if they were looking for Mick, because I didn't know where he was or what they were hoping to find. But they searched everywhere. Mike was even woken up, you know, and he still remembers that to this day. He always talks about that. He says, I always remember the police doing all this and doing that. And the one stayed downstairs with me. He was actually quite a nice copper. He used to go to school with Mick, he said. And he said, well, at least I can see by your house that he's made it nice for you, because I had a lovely white telly. It was all dead trendy, like on a stand, like a space thing. We had a big white table. It was fabulous anyway. And, you know, he said, at least I've seen, you know, he's done all that. But he said, why is he doing what he is? And I said, well, I don't know. What has he done? He said, we can't really tell you now, but you know, he's a bit of a bad and all that. I thought, oh no. Anyway, the following day, still hadn't heard from Mick. I never told his mum and dad, I never got in touch with his mum and dad or anything. And I just couldn't bear to tidy up. So I just phoned mum and dad. Mum said, can me and Mike come and stay just for a couple of days? So she said, yes, of course, love. I never told them either. And they came to pick me up, but before they came to pick me up, I took Mike to this toy shop and bought him a little car, you know, because he wanted, just to make up for it. And then mum and dad took me back, but apparently my dad said to mum, have you seen what Irene's done to the house? She's so untidy. She's left all the stuff all over the floor, all the drawers wide open. But I thought, well, I'm not saying, you know, I wasn't going to say. So I just went back home for a couple of days. And then I had to phone his mum. I had to tell them. I just didn't want to tell them, but I had to, because I think, was it them that told me? I think it might have been them that came round and told me that he was arrested. He was in Ellesmere Port Prison in the police station downstairs in the cells, and his dad came to pick me up. I think that's what happened. Yeah, his dad came for me and took me to see him. Well, that was horrible. That was horrible, really.
Was he in the cells?
Yeah, he was downstairs in the cells. I think he came up somewhere, but it was still like a prison. It was horrible. Anyway, so I got really upset. That was it. Then he got the Crown Court date. So he didn't really go into a lot of details of me. He sort of liked to, even though he was like there, he didn't like to let me know what really went on, what's been going on. But then the court case, I went with his mum and his auntie Irene, who's dead now, bless her. And I took Mike with me, and I was dreading it. I still get that horrible feeling now. I can't go near Chester Crown Court. Chester Crown Court it was. I still can't go near it. If we used to go out, we used to go near a pub there, and I just couldn't bear to look at the court. I used to just feel sick, literally sick. And we took Mike, and it was horrendous. So we got to the court, and I was like shaking, and I was thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen? And then Mick came up, and then talking all this 7 years for this, 7 years for that. I was just oblivious. I couldn't take anything in. Mike was sitting on me near. I was hugging Mike. 7 years for this, 7 years for that, 7 years for this, 4 years for this. I didn't take it all in. And then it said 7 years concurrently. The gavel went down 7 years concurrently to run concurrently. And then Mick was taken back downstairs.
I've got 28 years altogether, 3 7s, a 4, a 2 and a 1, all to run concurrent. Post office, shotgun, GBH and all sorts of nonsense. And I got put away, and this was 1974. And the #1 record, when I was on remand, when will I see you again? When will we share precious moments? The 3 degrees, and that was #1.
Did he see anything when he was getting led downstairs?
No. But his mum and Auntie Irene went down to see him, but I was too upset. I couldn't go down to see him. It was horrendous. I just couldn't. I mean, 7 years when I was only young, and Mike.
How old were you?
I was about 20, 21, something like that. I just thought, 7 years in them days, it was a hell of a long time. And I was so upset. I just ran out of the court with Mike, and I was walking down the road, and I went past this lovely boutique that I used to love. And it had a gorgeous dress in the window, and I thought to myself, God, if I got that dress, you'd never see me. Oh, it's a horrible feeling. And there's people getting on and off buses and people going in shops and people laughing. And I was thinking, why are they all doing that? My life's ended. And why are they laughing? Why are they going shopping? You know, it was horrible. And I got the bus and I got off in Little Sutton to go back to our house. And there's a big billboard outside the news station that he'd done a big billboard, and it said local man got 7 years, and that was horrible to see that great big letters, you know, outside the shop. I thought, oh, it was awful. Anyway, I just went home, and then the following day I went to see a friend of mine, and I got lost because I was all flustered. I got the wrong bus. I went into a shop to get some sweets. I didn't even know where I was. I lost my purse in there. I just didn't know where it was. It was just horrendous. It was a nightmare. It was really, really horrible. And to me, it's still like yesterday. Still get them feelings. It's horrible. And why? I mean, I've been married since and had, you know, like long-lasting relationships, but all that is still in my head, so clear. Whereas it's not with anything else, with anybody else, but just all those years ago, it was horrendous, the most horrible thing in my life ever.
When was the next communication with Mick then? Was he allowed to phone you or was it by letter?
No, you weren't allowed to phone then. He wrote to me saying how sorry he was, and but he would have been out after 3 years. He did it with 3 other blokes, but apparently they all sort of snitched on him. So I think the most one of them got was 4 years. But I mean, it was them that had done it. They'd organised it, and Mick was stupid enough to do it, to go along and do it. And Mick got the most. They're all well out now.
What was your first visit like?
Oh, it was horrible. It was Walton. Yeah, in Walton. His mum took me. I didn't have Mike, just me and his mum. And we were sitting in this waiting room. And it was like a castle, like a dungeon. I mean, it was like you had like big wooden like benches to sit on, like one here and one there. And the walls were just stone, great big bits of stone, like in the dungeon of a castle. And I was thinking, oh my God, how horrible is this? It was horrendous. And then we were led through somewhere to go through some stuff sort of thing into like a hallway. It was, full little tables and things, and then we had to sit down. Then Mick came in, you know, and that's sad. You got no touching or anything, but he came in, and that was really sad to see him. He said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Irene," and everything. He said, "I'll go and get you some tea," and because I used to love my tea. He went and got us both a cup of tea, and you know, him and his mum and me one. We sat down, and I was thinking to myself, oh, it can't be this bad then, can it, prison? Because you can have cups of tea when you want. So, you know, it can't be as bad as the waiting room and that sort of thing. But it was horrible. And then when he went, it was just horrendous. He said, but don't worry, he said, I'll be out, you know, I'll be out in about 2 or 3 years at the most, you know, especially if I put my head down and buckle down to it and whatever. But it was so sad because when he got up to go, they had to go, Mike was running after him shouting, Daddy, 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 come back, Daddy, come back. Oh, it was awful. It was horrible. It was heartrending. There was a visit, I can't remember where he was, that I saw him afterwards, and he said that he'd been writing to me, I think once a week, and he was saying, lost this remission, I've been to a VC, which is a visiting court. This man's come up to me and stabbed this or done that, whatever. Another time he was digging a pond or something in the grounds, you know, in the gardens or something, for whatever. And as he was digging it, some bloke came behind him and did something to him, and he lost remission over that. Then he started to get remission added on. He's lost all his remission, so it was like a full 7 years, and he was always apologising. But I mean, he's not had it easy. He's not like a lot of people go to prison and have normal prisons. He's not had it like that. And then
any reason why, do you think? Is it because he's a big man? I'm 6 foot.
Well, he's made himself big, hasn't he? He's had to
training. You know. So why do you think that's happened to him? Why do you think in those early days of that 7 year sentence that things were conspiring against him?
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, prisons anyway. When you have to, the prisons he's been in, you have to make yourself hard anyway. So you have to prove to yourself that you have to prove to everybody else that not to mess. And having all that time, he's been doing exercises and whatever, and then, you know, he's had 44 years solitary confinements, and that's why he wears those glasses, because he's never seen any light. His eyes are all affected. So you know, because they've been kept in the dark.
Well, let's talk about how the relationship deteriorated then. I mean, why did the relationship between you and Mick deteriorate?
Yeah. Well, in the end, I think he told me, I mean, he was just losing so much remission, then getting more and more time added on.
And I've gone on to the visit, and I'm in a bit of a bad way, because a couple of weeks before, I'd attacked a prison officer with a lump of wood, and I'd just lost 180 days remission and about 6 months punishment down the block. So when I went on the visit, I was still, you know, lots of bruises and cuts and what have you, stitches in my head. So when you attack a prison officer, you throw one punch, they'll throw 21 back. Mob-handed. And she came up on the visit with her son, Michael, and she looked at me and she said something on that visit that I've never, ever forgot, and I'll take it to my grave with me. She said, "The way you're going, you'll end up in a fairy farm." I laughed. I said, "Oh, don't talk silly, Irene. Bloody hell. I'm not mad." 3 years later, I was in fucking Broadmoor, criminal lunatic asylum. They'd nutted me off. So her words come true. Now, in 1976, I'm in the said block, the dungeon in Wandsworth Prison. And I've come out my cell this day, and I've attacked 3 prison officers. And I've ended up in the body belt, ankle straps, and they've slung me in the strong box. And while I'm in there, they come to the door and they've slung me a great big brown envelope. Now, obviously, with being in the body belt, my hands, my wrists are on my hips in cuffs, so I can't move my hands and arms. I can move my fingers, but I can't even scratch my arse. So I've rolled over, as he's thrown this big brown envelope, he shouted, "You and your missus don't fucking love you." And shut the door. And I thought, hold up, what's he fucking on about? So I've rolled across the floor, managed to get the paperwork out of the brown envelope, and it was divorce papers. And that is how I found out I was getting divorced.
It took me a lot of courage to go and divorce him though. I went through the yellow pages, nearly every solicitor I could find practically round about Neston, Heswall, Liverpool, made appointments to see them and then cancelled them because I was just so scared. I was really, really scared, really scared. But eventually in the end I did do it. I did follow the appointment and I went through and I did it, and that's when the divorce got started. And then he didn't attend the divorce, and it was in Birkenhead Crown Court, and all the divorces that day, it was all divorces that day, and they were uncontested, is that the word? Uncontested divorces, so there was only like one person that was doing it. Well, because my name was Peterson, you had to sit in the courtroom as well while it was all going on, it was Peterson, I was right at the bottom, you know, so I was like watching everybody else's divorces being annulled and, you know, annulled and things like that. And this judge, God, he was horrible, he was. He was making a horrible remark to every single person that was, you know, asking for the divorce. He'd make some snidey remark, and I thought, oh God, isn't he horrible? Anyway, when it came to my turn, I was dreading it by then because I thought he's going to say something horrible to me. And he said to me, Michael Peterson. Well, the whole court. Oh, yes. Oh, I see he's in, I think it was Walton, I can't remember which prison he was in. Oh, poor chappie, he said, and looked round the court. That's not the most salubrious of our Majesty's hotels, is it? poor man. And I thought, what? You know, just weird. Never forget that. Not the most, poor chappie, poor man. Not the most salubrious of our Majesty's hotels, is it? He's in. Yeah, anyway, that was it. And I wrote to Mick, you know, and he, no problems, whatever. But I did also say, could I have got my sister to send him a form so he wouldn't have anything to do with Mike? Only because in them days, I just thought it was the best thing to do. I know now it's the worst thing ever. And I always tell loads of people, if they're getting divorced or they just split up with their boyfriends or whatever and they've got kids involved, let the kids see them, whatever happens. I'm always saying that. You know, I always tell them, I said, don't do that. And they say, no, well, no, he's missed a visit, so why should he? And things like that. And I say, no, what little bit they have is, you know, and cut all his family off, because I just thought it was for the best, which I thought at the time, because I didn't really know. And I sent, I sent Mick a form, and he signed it, which was no contact with Mike sort of thing, but he didn't realise what it was at the time. But, you know, he signed it. But it's the worst thing ever. I've done that. Should never have done that.
And that hurt. Really hurt. It woke me up. It was a reality kick in the bollocks. And from that, I went down and down and down until I got finally nutted off, you know. It was terrible for me. I missed her because I loved her. But like I say, I didn't deserve her. But looking back now, it was the only thing she could do, Steve. It was the most sensible thing she could do. She had to cut away and move on in life. Otherwise, she'd have gone mad and all.
How long was it between the divorce and having no communication? Are you seeing him again or hearing from him again?
Oh, I didn't. I didn't hear from him again for God knows. I can't remember how long it was. But about 26 years after. About 26 years after, one of my aunties phoned me up. Her name was Kelsey as well, and she said, there's a man asking about you, wanting to know if I know Irene Kelsey and all that. I thought, who's that? You know, I was getting a bit worried, thought, who the hell's this wanting to, you know, why is phoning my auntie? Apparently this person had been going through all the Kelseys to try and find me. So I thought, I need to find out who this is, because, you know, who is it? And they were saying that it's a friend of Mick's. And I thought, well, it might be a murderer. It might, you know, you don't know who it is, this complete stranger trying to ring up this friend of Mick's who's been in prison for like 20 odd years, 26 years. So I phoned up, and it was Ray, and he was lovely. He said, oh, I hope I'm not scared you. I said, well, you have really, whatever. But he said, don't worry. He said, it's just that Mick wants to get in touch with Mike again. I just thought it would be nice if I could fix it up for them. So then I told Mike and said, look, Mike, I said, it's entirely up to you. I said, you can do it or you can't. It's your choice. Do whatever you want. So he said, oh, yes, I'll go and see him. So Ray took him to see his dad. And they had like a big reunion and everything, which was really nice.
You had a feeling that if he continued in the same vein, that he would end up in an asylum.
Oh, yes.
And he did.
I said that the last time I went to see him, because he'd lost so much remission and we started to get time added on. So I said, look, Mick, I said, if you keep on like this, you're going to end up in an asylum, honestly. I mean it. And he did. 3 years after, he ended up in Broadmoor. And he was climbing the roofs.
A rooftop protest by a patient at Broadmoor Top Security Hospital in Berkshire. The man has been shouting complaints about hospital conditions, and it's understood he wants to be transferred to a hospital in Liverpool.
Did you see the footage and the news reports at that time?
No. Do you know why? I didn't really, because I used to go to Mum. I never used to buy a paper. But Mum and Dad had the papers all the time. And every time I did look at the papers, you know, see which, it was always the Mirror or something. There was always pages missing. And I'd think to myself, what? So I'd do it a few times and nothing, pages are missing. And I'd say, Dad, why are the pages missing? Yeah, there's always, every time I want to read one of your papers, there's always pages missing. And Dad would say, oh, it's that bloody paper boy, isn't it? He doesn't know what he's doing. He starts reading them and he loses the pages. So I just accepted that. And that was that, you know. And then when Mike got to an age when he was getting older, and he himself was reading papers, I used to do the same thing. I'd go through any paper that we had delivered to look to make sure there's nothing about Mick and take the pages out. It was only then that I realised that's what my dad had been doing, so I wouldn't get upset by reading the paper, reading about him. And when he was in Broadmoor, I was watching the telly with Mum and Dad. He came on the news and Dad couldn't do anything to stop it. But that was a really big shock, seeing that. Really seeing him on the roof of Broadmoor, you know, when he was making that rooftop. But Dad just sort of passed it off as a joke to make me feel better. It's horrible.
That's 50 fucking years ago, nearly. Exactly 48 years ago. Nearly half a century. And the only time I've seen her since then is once on Loose Women and once on a TV documentary.
What did you feel about the name change when he went from Michael Peterson?
Well, that's why I don't refer to him as Charlie. He's not Charlie. I don't know. He might be Charlie now, but I don't know him from inside. Do you know what I mean? I knew him before.
He got married twice in prison. Tell us your thoughts on the other two.
Yeah, well, as I say, Sarah I didn't like at all because I saw her on she was on television with her daughter making out that Mick hasn't got any children. And that's why I turned against that. Mike got so upset, saying on camera, saying, Mick's always wanted children, now he's got one, he's got my daughter. And I thought that was hurtful because Mick already had Michael, had his son. And I don't understand how a woman, and also any woman wouldn't do that. Anyway, that's just pure nastiness. But to have her, she had a child as well, so she knew what it liked. How could she go on camera and say, Mick's always wanted children, now he's got my son, when she knew, because I'm sure she damn well knew that Mick had Mike, you know, and not mention Mike at all. You know, just act as if her daughter was what Mick's always wanted. And, you know, Mike's nothing at all. And that really put me right off her, so I never took to her at all.
What about Paula?
Paula, love Paula. Paula is lovely. I just wish she was here. I still got messages on the phone from her that I can't delete, but sometimes if I'm scrolling through things, it'll come up and my heart, I feel sick. You know, I can't. She was lovely. Now, Paula said to me, she used to try and get Mike involved, you know, as Mick's son. She never cut Mike out. She never acted as if Mike was never born. She did everything she could to get Mike involved with his dad and her. And she even said to me, Paula, she said, I just want us all, she said, I just want you, Mike, me and Mick she said Charlie, all to be one big happy family. And I thought that was so lovely. You know, and that's what, you know, and I thought that was lovely. So that's why I love Paula. I'll never, ever forget Paula, and I'll love her forever. She was lovely. And not only that, we went out together, and if a certain tune would come on, the thing, when we were out that night, she'd start doing a movement, and I'd be doing the same movements. You know, it was really weird. We had like sort of both doing the same thing. We even did the same dances. We were doing the same dances, and she's a bit psychic like I am as well. You know, she senses things and whatever like I do. Oh, she was lovely. I adore Paula. Yeah, I really do adore Paula. I always will.
One of the more positive things to come out of Michael's time in prison, Mick's time in prison, is his artwork. And, you know, from those early days, it was very basic. I've got a lot of his early stuff.
Oh, yeah. And then it was a bit mad, wasn't it? It was really quite maddish and everything. But he's evolved from all that now.
And I know you've got some great examples. Talk about a couple of specific pieces of artwork that you've got that Mick sent you.
Well, he sent me two really nice ones last year, but one of them was what he'd just done for representing me and him. And it started off with like a cross in the beginning with Mick and Irene, and then it showed the involvement when he was still Mick, the involvement of it turning into Charlie, and then his ways and his, you know, what mood would he be in, or his violence that he was treated with all the time, and everything would affect him. So it all sort of went from being Mick to being Charlie. And then he always says to me that he's got this dream that it comes out, he should come out. He's not a terrorist, he's not a rapist, he doesn't kill women, he doesn't hurt women, murder. Why isn't he out? It's because it just fights the system. People don't realise that his crimes are inside. And people don't realise that what they've done to him to make him kick off, because it's never reported that. It's only reported, oh, Mick's kicked off again. It's not reported why is he kicked off, or why, or what have they been doing to him to make him do so. Even that stupid art teacher who said that Mick took him hostage, and Mick never even hurt him, but he went into that prison, you know, with sort of people like Mick and everything, a category A, and started making fun of Mick's pictures when he knew that Mick, you know, when you're in prison like that, his art was everything. So him making fun of his art was like making fun of his mother. Do you know what I mean? Something like that, because that's how special it was. So he deserved all that, but he didn't get. I know, well, Mick shouldn't have done that, but that's what that's how you would react, wouldn't it, if you were in a category A and that you loved your art and that. But I'm sorry, but I just think he just really, I've seen one documentary, the one I was in, he's just played it for so much to get so much money and whatever. He was just ridiculous. And also another good friend, Mike O'Hagan, he was a prison officer. He was on one of the first documentaries. He resigned because of Mick's treatments. He was disgusted with the way that Mick was getting treated, so he resigned from the police thing.
Yeah, from the prison authorities. Yeah. And Mick encouraged him with his artwork.
Yeah, Mike did, Mick O'Hagan, yeah. And then his now, all Mick wants to do is get out. Well, he's an old man now. He's a lot older than me. He's not really, but don't worry.
Don't worry, he said the same about you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a little joke. But, you know, he's an old man, but he shouldn't be in there. It's not fair. You know, I mean, people that are let out after 10 years are murderers or things, terrorists. I mean, how can you, child rapists, and they come out and do it again, how can they keep somebody that hasn't done anything like that, you know, inside for 45 years? And, you know, really, really bad, when say in prison, sometimes he's slept on the floor, a cell floor, given his food through a plate, no lights, nothing, for years and years and years and years. It's disgusting. It's terrible. Stopped all his post, everything like that. Stopped all his normal, proper prison basic needs. They stopped it all. They've stopped it time and time and time again. I think he's so strong, and all he wants to do is keep smiling, be happy, and I just wish he gets out. I just so want him to get out. He deserves a life. His whole life's gone. I mean, he's too old now. He's not in crime. He's not into crime. He's not into anything like that at all. All he wants to do is buy a little old cottage, you know, in the middle of nowhere, and turn this into, have a room to do drawings and art, and sell his artwork and make a living like that. Hopefully he wants it to be near a beach, so he can just run along the beach, feel the sea between his toes and the wind on his face, and hear the seagulls singing. Oh, and he wants to have fish and chips. So, you know, I just want him to get out so he can do that, because that's all he is. And another thing, people never mention all the good stuff he does. All the charities he's donated to. He's donated to the hospice that Clare House, where Mike was born, in that hospital, Clatterbridge, which is in Clare House. He gets letters from them regularly every year to thank him for everything he's done for them. He's got other charities. And do you know when the Moors murderers was going on, and the lady that was looking for the son that she had,
Bennett, yeah, Winnie Johnson.
Yeah, he donated money to her so she could carry on looking. You know, it's nothing that the goodness is But mind you, media do make it all up. I mean, they're not good. They don't want to print something good, do they? They just want to make it really horrific and whatever. But do you know, he went to court last year because the prison governor said that he'd attacked him, and all the screws said that Mick had attacked him, so he went to court. But Mick wasn't going to plead guilty because he wasn't guilty. So he went to court last year. He had a jury of 12 men and women, whatever, and they all found him not guilty. And he did his own counsel. So people are beginning to find out now. All the screws went against him, and the prison governor went against him, said that Mick had attacked them. But Mick spoke for himself, he did his own counsel, and the whole jury of 12, is it 12 or 13 people, they all found him not guilty. So, see, it's getting out now, the truth.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think that people now are waking up to the fact?
They are waking up to the fact.
He's actually been, portrayed by the media as something that he's quite clearly not, and that is the real Michael Peterson is actually, somebody who should be released sooner rather than later.
The film they brought out, I mean, that was just pathetic, really. That was just...
Obviously, it was Bronson with Tom Hardy playing the role. Tom's a fantastic actor.
I mean, they made him out to be like a nutter, a clown, and it did him no favours. Whereas another documentary, 2 documentaries that were on Ages a few years ago, they showed the true Michael Peterson, the true Charles Bronson, and people realised what really went on because it was all sneaked out of prison, all the footage, so they know that what really went on, and they changed their opinion of him.
Do you think if he came full circle? I mean, this isn't something I've ever asked him, but do you think if he came full circle and became Michael Peterson again, that would probably help him as well?
Yeah. Well, his paintings, people have commented on his paintings on Facebook. Different people like Rod Harrison sent me a beautiful painting recently. It was like the cottage. It's just like reddy and yellow and oranges. And there's this cottage that he wants. And there's fields everywhere. Just him. And that's his dream. It's called his dream. And that's what he wants to do. That's what he's dreaming of. That's what's keeping him going. That's why he's so positive, because he knows that he's entitled to get out, and he is going to get out, and he is going to have this dream. He's going to rent somewhere first and then make enough money to buy that cottage, his dream, and run with his toes in the sand, feel the sand and the wind and the rain in his hair and everything. I mean, he's Mike's dad, so I want Mick out. I've always wanted Mick out. Mike's always wanted him out. It's just, it's horrible to know that he's in there. I just don't want him in there. I just want him out. I want him to live his life. I want him to have a life.
I always loved her, mate. I never stopped loving her, even though it hurt me. But that's how it is, isn't it? We're now the best of friends. I love her. I respect her. I still think she's a stunning, beautiful woman. She makes me laugh. Like I say, I ain't met her yet since 75. So we will have a visit next year when this virus shit clears up.
I'll always be his friend, and he's so good to me. I mean, he's kept me going a lot lately with Mike being ill in hospital. I mean, he really has. I mean, people say I'm a different person now. I'm not upset and stressed as much and anxious. Because he'd say, just forget, the sun comes after the storm, things will get better, just be positive. I am being so much positive now. I mean, I think he's an amazing man for coping so long in that place with all the treatments. He's survived all that.
You're both survivors in different ways. 2020's been an awful year for everybody, not just in the UK, but across the world. 2021 should see the possibility of people being able to go and visit Mick again in prison. Is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, he's asked me to go and see him. Yeah. And I would, but sometimes he says, I think I'd prefer to wait till he gets out. But it will be very emotional you know, if I do go, but as they don't know what's happening, I've done all the things I have to do, you know, so it's just, I have to see what happens. It will be really, really, you know, so emotional because it's like 45 years.
You're about to write a book, you know, about, you know, your experiences, your life. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I've got lots of experience. It's obviously going to be about Mick as well, you know, and what's it like when your husband goes in prison, you've got a little boy and having to cope with all that sort of life. And especially as Mike's been getting older and Mick's still in there and he's getting famous and more famous and more famous. I mean, what effect it's going to have on Mike? You know, and what's it like? I mean, putting the tally on, is he going to come on the telly? I remember once I was with Mike watching the tally. It was only about 6 o'clock. And luckily enough, Michael had just gone to the shop to get some sweets. He was about 9, I think. And it came on a programme about Broadmoor. And there was a man walking. You just saw his back, but you heard him talking. And I thought, oh my heart was beating. I thought, he walks just like Mick. And he was sounding like Mick. I thought, bet that's Mick. I thought, oh, thank God Mike's just gone to the shop and not seen it. You know what I mean? It's just on, it's always in there. It's the publicity. It's always there. I mean, you can't just forget about him. You just open any newspaper ever and it's on. Even the news, it's on. There's always something about it. It's ongoing all the time. You know, and it's hard. Mike's not taken too well with it, actually. It's, you know, he really hasn't coped with it all that well with what's been going on and everything. But it's the heartache of all that goes on and on. It's not just a dad that's just gone to prison. It's a dad that's turned into Charles Bronson.
Welcome, come on in and close the door. That's the song that's playing at my freedom party.